My name is Geoffrey Cooling. For those of you who don't know me but may have heard of me, it's all filthy lies. There's no truth to it, none of it. For those of you who don't know me and haven't heard of me, it'll all be over soon. Don't worry. Think of it as an audiological rite of passage, like masking. Not very pleasant, but you just got to get on with it. So, in order to understand the future client and how we've shaped the position we're in, I think that we need to quickly look at the history of our profession and who we are. So, our profession initially started back in the day of the dinosaurs as basically door-to-door salesmen. In essence, that's what private hearing aid sales was. As the profession progressed, some people got illusions of grandeur and aspersions to responsibility, and they changed our system, our profession, towards what was really a healthcare model, but was still focused on the sale of hearing aids. What we've done since then, particularly in the last few years, is we've widened our scope of practice. We've introduced tinnitus therapy, we've introduced earwax removal, again, because it helps us sell hearing aids. That's in essence what we've done. Our focus has been on a product. It has always been on a product. Everything we do was designed to help us sell a product. So I would challenge everyone here today to ask themselves, are they a salesperson who dabbles in healthcare, or a healthcare professional who happens to sell products? Don't expect you to answer that, but I'd like you to think about it. Really think about it. Because what we do is important. What we do is really important. We enable people to live a better life. That's what we do every day, and we sell hearing aids. So, what are we? What are you? Are you a health professional who enables people to live better lives? Are you a hearing aid salesman or woman? And I think that's something that our profession needs to challenge ourselves with. We need to ask that question. We need to decide what that answer is, because it will shape our future and our profession. Yesterday, Curtis Alcock, I agree wholeheartedly with Curtis Alcock, except for one thing. I'm afraid that it's too late. I'm afraid that we've trained the consumer to believe that it's about a product. It's not about the service and what we do to help them in their lives. Curtis doesn't think it is. Curtis is an optimist. I'm a bit of a pessimist. So that's where we are, okay? So consumers, the consumer has changed dramatically. Our clients are starting to change, and we're already seeing the leading edge of that. Every business, no matter what industry, has been disrupted. There was an initial wave of what was called digital disruption. That initial wave was really about breaking down silos of information, okay? Information was democratized. Businesses lost control of information, which was power. That information was given to the hands of consumers. We're deep in the second wave of disruption at this stage. The second wave of disruption is where digital innovation and changing consumer needs and requirements are destroying and completely disrupting business models. The client now, the customer now, is more demanding, they're more informed, they're certainly more educated than they ever were before. They will research. Not only will they research, but they will have access to the information that they need. Free and easy access. The genie is out of the bottle, and it can't be stuffed back in. That's not how it works. So the consumer as well that we're seeing is different. The consumer now, particularly in health, and health is a purchase decision. In the NHS, or with the UK NHS, it's slightly different. But private health is certainly a purchase decision. In the States, they're seeing a massive disruption within private healthcare. The reason why they're seeing it is because people have access to more information. They want to understand what their problems are. They want to understand how their treatment works. They also want to collaborate in the process. They want control over the process. In fact, they demand it. The audiological profession in the US is suffering a bit of a shock, a bit of a nightmare at this stage. And the reason why it is because it said to consumers, we know best. We've studied for 7 years and we're doctors, and we know what we're talking about. And doesn't wash with modern consumers. Paternalistic health care is finished with modern consumers. Healthcare moving forward is all about a collaborative process between doctors and patients. Patients want to make decisions. The other thing that's happened in relation to disruption is that people have more control over what they do. Customization, personalization. In fact, companies are thriving on offering that customization and personalization. This has led to a stage again where it's about control. The OTC Act has passed in the States. I think it's going to have a profound effect. I think it's certainly going to have a profound effect in the States, but I think it's going to have a profound effect globally. The reason why I say that is PSAPs have been available forever. They've always been available. They're cheap tat. Every consumer knows they're cheap tat. They buy them on the basis that they are cheap tat and they'll give them a try. However, what OTC has actually done, or what it will do, is it will validate those products. If they are OTC products, they will be validated by the FDA. So they'll no longer be cheap tat. In the mind of the consumer, they'll be a medical device that they can use off the shelf, just like reader glasses. When that happens, in order for this whole ecosystem to exist, to come into existence, for these consumers to buy theirs off the shelf, order them online, etc., there'll have to be self-fitting, and there'll have to be self-fine-tuning. Both of those will play into not only that business model as a whole, but it'll also play into that idea of control that modern consumers are looking for. They'll have control. I think as people get used to that, within 5 or 6 years, we'll see a leading wave of consumers who are used to having control, having complete control. When they arrive at our clinics and we test their hearing, and then we program their hearing aids, and we hand them an app that doesn't give them control, and they demand it, what are we going to do? What are we going to do to service that need, to service that requirement? I think that everybody knows that it's going to change. Our whole system is going to change. I think in maybe 5 or 10 years, I think it's an outlier, but I think there's a possibility that we may not sell hearing aids. We just may not. Does that take our reason for being away from us? It does if you're married to the past. If you're married to the old business model, yeah. If you're a hearing aid salesman and you're not selling hearing aids, what's the point? So I think that we really certainly need to think about that. Again, I think it's an outlier. I think what will happen will be that within 5 to 10 years, the idea of hearing aids and hearables will merge. There won't be a separation. They'll just be hearables. They'll be off-the-shelf hearables, and they'll be customized hearables, delivered in a different way. The manufacturers, each of the big 6, them filthy manufacturers, they're going to have to deal with this problem. They're going to have to deal with this. They have shareholders, they have billions invested, they're going to have to deal with it. Our profession needs to understand that, and we need to get together and shape that future. Because if we don't shape that future, someone else will, and you won't like it. And that's really what needs to happen. So, some of the things that are coming down the road, okay? That the guy from IBM earlier on, excellent. IBM has Watson. It's supercomputers, they're outstanding in what they do. Basically, it's machine learning algorithms, and they're being used by hosts of different healthcare agencies, okay? One in particular really caught my attention, and that's from Institute for Creative Technology, and it's called Ellie. So Ellie is a virtual interviewer. That's exactly what she is. She's a therapist, virtual therapist, right? So people talk to Ellie. Ellie brings them through a process, asks them questions, and Ellie helps the diagnosis and referral of those people to specialists who match those people's personalities, okay? What's really fascinating about Ellie is that people open up to her. She's not real. There's no problem telling her their deepest secrets or their darkest anxieties. The other thing that's really fascinating about Ellie is Ellie has a better hit rate than therapists. Ellie has a better diagnosis rate than therapists. When I read about Ellie, it really fascinated me because I thought about our process. So we have to move people through an emotional process to one where they're in a state of being that they want to move forward. And I thought, you know, it can be difficult because we're not all blessed with counselling skills. Not only that, the people in front of us may feel very difficult or may feel anxious about talking about their problems, about their issues, about the effect that hearing care is having on them or hearing health is having on them. And I thought, geez, Ellie'd be great. You know, if you deployed Ellie as your first point of contact or something like Ellie, it'd be amazing. People could work through their hearing health emotional issues, come to a state of being whereby they were ready to move forward. In this way, technology doesn't have to be a threat. Therapists don't see Ellie as a threat. They see her as an enabler, a facilitator to what they do. We don't have to see technology as a threat. The American market seeing technology as a threat, and they try to keep the lid on. And look where that's got them. I think in the UK, we don't need to see technology as a threat. I think we need to work out how we can infuse that technology within our practices. How we can offer what patients want, what patients need, how we can meet their requirements, and how we can use the technology to do so. That's our job. That's our profession's job. It's not the manufacturer's job. They sell hearing aids. That's what they do. There's too much. I see it. It infuriates me in the American market. The manufacturers, take responsibility for who you are. Take responsibility for who you are and the profession that you represent. Don't blame someone else. In 5 or 6 years' time, when you're out of a job, it wasn't Siemens' fault or Phonex's fault. But it doesn't have to be like that, and I don't think it will be like that. One of the things that we spoke about in this conference was machine learning. So Whitehead spoke about machine learning. Machine learning is really fascinating, and I think it's a massive step forward for the efficacy of hearing aids. So as more and more manufacturers introduce machine learning, we'll see the efficacy of hearing aids in real time just grow exponentially. Hearing aids will begin to deliver exactly what hearing aid users need and want. What will that do to fine-tuning? So, will it remove the need for fine-tuning? It might. But it won't remove the need for validation or verification. It won't remove the need for ongoing service needs. Even if self-fitting comes to pass, and I mean comes to pass in a huge way, 10 years down the line, where it's not just OTC devices or what we will know as OTC devices, but also traditional manufacturers go down the route of self-fitting. Does that mean we're out of the equation? I don't think so. I think it will change what we are. I think it will change what we do. I think that we'll still do validation and verification. I still think that we will test hearing. How we will do that even may change. I mean, the pure tone audiogram is a blunt instrument. It tells us nothing. It really doesn't. It tells us what level you can hear sound at. It tells us nothing about how you hear speech or how we can program a hearing aid to help you hear speech better. So, are we going to be stuck with the pure tone audiogram? Maybe not. Blamey and Saunders have a blended model where they sell hearing aids online. However, if a patient needs to be seen by a professional, they are. Okay? They assess whether the patient needs to be seen by a patient or they can do it themselves during the initial consultation, online consultation. And they apply that blended model quite well. Is that the future for us? Is that the future that a customer, a client, a patient, a modern consumer will demand? Possibly. There's a lot of things we don't know and we can't know. We really can't. Everything else is just guessing, Mystic Meg stuff. But we need to think about it. We need to understand possibles, and we need to, as a profession, decide how we're going to meet those possibles. The other thing with the modern consumer is about wellness. The idea of health and healthcare has changed dramatically over the last few years. People consider long-term wellness. My uncle is 73 and he likes to kite surf. He also likes to throw himself off mountains on a mountain bike. He's the leading edge of a demographic that is following. You see it regularly, jogging in the park. How many people bought bicycles? Wellness has become a continuous concept as opposed to something that you worry about when you're sick. Healthcare has changed. We see primary healthcare really driving forward across the world, not just in the UK, but across the world. Primary healthcare really is about protective healthcare as much as it is about reactive healthcare. Again, that feeds into this whole idea of wellness. One of the manufacturers is going to introduce sensor sets into the hearing aids. I think that idea will expand across most of the manufacturers. And I think it serves the purposes of the demographic that we're beginning to see and that we will see in the future. The idea of these sensor sets that allow fitness tracking, bio tracking, but more than that, fall tracking, pulse and oximetry tracking, these sensors will give us opportunities, but only if we're willing to take them and shape them. We could become part of a primary care model. The data that these type of sensor sets produce are really important within a modern primary care model. We have a geriatric population. The government wants to save money. Every government across the world is facing a geriatric population and not really understanding how they're going to get the money to care for them. Part of that will be keeping older people in the home. Part of that keeping older people in the home will be monitoring, biomonitoring, and home care. Sensor sets and hearing aids, particularly in a geriatric population, will feed into that. And we could be the gatekeepers of that information, or at least the facilitators of that information. But again, unless we consider it as a profession and start thinking about how we may integrate it, it's not going to happen. It will be taken away from us. And that's really what's happening across the world. If you look at the States, they were intransigent, they were paternalistic, and now the ball's been taken away from them. That's basically what's happened. So it's something that we need to consider. Again, I'll ask you the question. Are you a healthcare professional who happens to sell hearing aids? Or are you a hearing aid salesperson who happens to be involved with health? I think you should really think about that.